And Henry, it's great to see you again. I so much appreciate you taking your time to talk to us today. So I just wanted to ask you to just please introduce yourself. Let us know what your specialty is and how long you've been doing it. I think that would be great.
All righty. Well, first off, as Olga said, I'm Henry. And I'd like to first thank you, Olga, for having me here to chat with some of your people here. Um, I'm an attorney. I specialize in what's referred to as elder law, which is, I always say it's estate planning and all the needs and goals and planning and protections that seniors need. And people then ask, so are seniors your only clients? And I say, no, not at all. We represent all generations because all generations need the same type of planning. Just seniors tend to be a little bit more urgent about it. Younger people, they plan and say, I'm going to get to that. So when we focus on the senior aspect, it's kind of more accelerated, more pressing. But all of the same issues that confront seniors confront, everybody all along the spectrum. And so what we do, the type of things we're going to talk about today are applicable to everybody. Um, I can't be referred to as an expert in the area of elder law. I'm what's called a certified elder law attorney, which means I have a national certification as an expert. It's recognized by the courts of Pennsylvania, so I can say that. I'm also just recently retired as president of the Pennsylvania Bar Association Elder Law Section, which was kind of a fun way to spend a year. I was in office when all of the craziness happened. So it was a very, very interesting year. A lot of very interesting legislation that we helped to get through to try and help everyone in handling what's going on. And I'm very proud to say that last year I won the honor of Elder Law Attorney of the Year. It's given by the Pennsylvania Bar Association. It's not given annually, it's given how the charter says, it's given when it's earned. So every year, a couple of years, it comes out, and I was awarded it last year because of, I guess, I fooled somebody, I guess would be the best way to say it. But enough about elder law, enough about all of that. What I'm going to do, it's probably not going to work out too well just because of the nature of things. I'm going to share my screen with you, and because I have a little bit of a slideshow, just makes it a little bit more entertaining than staring at my face, which gets kind of tedious real quick. And if I could suggest, if you're on a Zoom platform, there's a thing that toggles the view. And if you could toggle it to speaker view, then what will happen is it'll be a bigger image, and then you'll be able to see it better. Or you could go to, I think it's gallery view, and that's where you can see everybody, whatever your pleasure is. But it's just a little bit easier to read in the speaker view. So with that being said, let me try and do what I just said I'm going to do. The one thing I will tell you is when I share my screen so that you can see the Zoom imagery, I can't see you. It's just a function of how the system works in my system. So if you have a question, feel free to chime in. But if you raise your hand, I'm not going to know. So just say, unmute yourself and go, hey, Henry, shut up for a second. I have a question, and I'll be happy to stop and answer whatever questions you have. Okay? So now let me see if I can actually do this.
Sounds like a plan. I made you a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, excellent. But that implies I know how to do that sort of thing.
Do you have a little green button in the middle of the bottom?
I'm trying to get the PowerPoint thing up first. Well, let's just do it this way.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it so you can, there you go. How's that? Can you see that?
Yes, perfect.
All right, excellent. Again, here, what we're talking about today is how to protect your stuff. And what that means is you've amassed some things over your lifetime. You're amassing things depending on what point of you are in life. And the goal of all of this is to figure out how to make sure that you can keep that safe and keep that protected. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I already told you a little bit about me, but this is my staff in a little image of our office. As you can see from the way I'm dressed, the way we all dress, the fact that's Rex, by the way. Rex is our dog, our office dog. He was a therapy dog. He's now just old and cranky, but he's still in the office most days. We view our clients as our family, and that's the approach we take, and that's how we view things, and it permeates in everything we do. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to help you identify your goals and help you identify how you can meet those goals, because that's your job. It's your stuff, and you need to know how to do those things. Will help you understand what it takes to protect you and to protect your stuff, and it's up to you to do that. And obviously, there's professionals that'll help you, people like Olga with your real estate issues, our office with your legal and other issues. Um, and also, more importantly, what we're going to do is help you learn what's missing in your plan, because that's what hurts you. It's not what you know that's going to hurt you. It's not what you're planning for that's going to hurt you. It's what you don't know. It's what you don't expect. And I always say, not only don't you know things, you don't know them. And that's where you really get in trouble. I always say to people, no matter what you're doing, no matter what your issues are, whatever, there are 3 steps to protecting yourself and to protecting your stuff. The first is you have to know the rules, because we live in a society of rules, whether they're financial rules, real estate rules, banking rules, legal rules. There's things you have to know about. But the second thing you need to do is you need to know the predators. You need to know the bad guys out there, because there are bad guys out there, and some are intentional, some are unintentional. But there are things out there that can mess up your plans. I mean, the biggest one, look at COVID. Talk about something that messed up plans. That's a bad guy. That's a predator. There are people that had plans in place that they were able to get through them. They had relatively unscathed. There are people that didn't, that had, their lives in turmoils. And then you need to know the options. You need to know what you can do once you've learned the rules and you've learned the predators, because there is always things you can do to protect your stuff, to protect yourself, to protect your family. You know what? Could you just excuse me for one quick second? No, never mind. Someone just flashed me a message, but I'm telling them they can wait. The one problem about doing this in your office, you can't hide. When I would go out to give stuff, if someone called me, I'd look at my phone and go, nah, I'm not going to bother with that. Now they can actually look at me and wave. Okay, so the three things you need to be aware of. So let's talk about each of these. You need to know the rules. Well, the government has rules on what's going to happen to you, what's going to happen to your stuff while you're alive and after you pass away. There are rules that say what you can do and you can't do. There are rules that define how you can invest your monies, where you can invest your monies, what you can do with real estate, whatever. The first rule that you need to know about that you can really handle and take advantage of and utilize is who has the authority? Who's the boss? You're the boss. You have the authority. Well, we're done. That's it. We have nothing to talk about. But that's not the real world. You have the authority now, But what happens if something happens to you? What happens if all of a sudden you're incapacitated? Look at Tiger Woods, great example. Yesterday, he was, taking care of everything. He was paying his bills, living his life. Now he's going to be in a hospital bed for a month. Who's paying his bills? Who's when he was unconscious, who was making decisions on what's going to happen to him? Those type of things you have to have in place someone with authority. Do you think Tiger Woods is going to be sitting in his hospital bed this week writing checks? And well, there I'm dating myself, writing checks, paying his stuff, paying his bills online and things like that? Of course not. He has someone that he's given authority to do that. He's authorized them. And how does someone who's not Tiger Woods, that doesn't have 50 people working for him, how does someone that has no one working for him, just themselves, figure out who's going to have that authority? Well, quite simply, there's 3 documents that you can do and get professional help so you do it right, that will govern things, that will control things, that will protect you in the event you can't do things. The first is a power of attorney, a general, legal, financial power of attorney. A general power of attorney is a document where you give someone authority to handle your affairs, so that if you can't write checks, if you can't cash checks, there's someone that can do that for you. Powers of attorney, when you're talking about this general power of attorney, can be one of 2 types. It can be a immediately effective power of attorney, which means when you sign it, the person you name has authority. They can start writing checks for you, paying your bills for you that day. Or it could be what's called standby or springing. And what that is, it's a document that when you sign it, it does nothing. It just sits there. But in the event you become incapacitated, in the event you need it, you have someone who is going to be able to step in and take care of your things for you, to protect you, to make sure things are done. Possibly the most important document there is. And I'll tell you why. I'm involved in 3 cases right now where it's a husband and a wife, where they didn't have powers of attorney. And in 2 cases, one of the spouses had dementia. When they came to our office, it was, my loved one is in a hospital going into a nursing home. They have dementia. They've been declared incapacitated. The other case was a bit more tragic. It was an accident, and someone that was relatively young and relatively healthy, unfortunately now isn't. If they had signed powers of attorney, this simple basic document, we could be doing planning now, number 1, for their care, but number 2, for their assets, to protect assets, to pay bills, to do things like that. But we don't have that. So you have to go to court, and we have to get a guardianship. And we'll talk about a guardianship in a second. We'll talk about it now. A guardianship is where you go to court and you put testimony on saying that your loved one's incapacitated, and that you're trying to tell the judge that they can't handle their stuff anymore. So let's strip them of all their powers. Let's call them literally a non-citizen and name someone to be a person taking care of them, making all their decisions. So again, we can get to a point where someone can make medical and financial decisions for someone, but after spending a boatload of money and a boatload of stress and a boatload of anxiety. So, that's the good news. The bad news is, in the 2 of these situations, the person's going to be the ones with dementia. They're going to be in a long-term care facility for a long time. And if we had authority, we could protect assets, literally all of this husband and wife's assets, and get this person on Medicaid and, get a pretty decent result. Obviously, terrible result. Person in a nursing home is not a goal we shoot for. But when you take that as a given, we could have done good planning for the family, asset protection family. Bucks County courts don't allow you to do that in guardianship. I had 2 petitions denied. I have a some colleagues also had petitions denied. The courts are saying, we understand that under Medicaid law, you can protect assets, but she didn't sign a power of attorney. He didn't authorize anyone to do it. So no one has the authority. So I have a client right now that's losing literally $500,000 in $15,000 a month increments because they didn't do a power of attorney. Can't stress the importance enough. Likewise, a medical power of attorney. Medical powers of attorney are documents where you name someone to make medical decisions for you. Not end of life medical decisions, lifetime, emergency medical situations. You know, you go to bed one night with a bad cold, you don't wake up the next day, you get rushed to the hospital. Doctor says you have COVID. We need to put them on these medicines. We need to connect them to this and that and the other thing. I'm medical power of attorney. I have authority. Go ahead and let's do it. And then when you get better, you're back calling the shots, so to speak.
Henry, I have a question about that.
Sure.
It was a recommendation to get a medical power of attorney also if you have your kids heading to college. This way, if something happens and you're not nearby, I just wanted to ask your opinion on that too.
Absolutely, that you want to have power of attorney for your children if they're going away to college. Do you remember, was it West Virginia? I guess about 5-10 years ago, where someone went on campus and shot a bunch of kids, and the children got rushed to the hospital, but were unconscious, they'd been in a terrible situation. So they couldn't consent to treatments. So they had to they had to contact parents so that they could make these decisions. But the hospital and the facility and the school had no authority to contact the parents because of privacy rules. So they were literally at a point where kids were going to bleed out because they couldn't treat them because they didn't have authority. And if the children had a power of attorney on record with the college, it would have been a non-issue. Now, what happened there was one of the college administrators said, if you put me in jail, I don't care. I'm not going to let these kids die. And they stepped up and contacted people and violated the children's privacy. Technically, it all went away. But if they had a power of attorney, medical power of attorney, that wouldn't have happened. That's a very, very important thing. As a matter of fact, when my children were in school, so that the youngest graduated about 3 years ago, I would offer free powers of attorney for any kid going to college. It was just a thing our office did, and we still would if anyone ever called, because it's just that important. Because again, you pray you never need it. You pray nothing ever happens. But if it does, taking advantage of the government rules, you can protect yourself, protect your family. Other government rules. Pardon me 1 second, I'm sorry. Sorry, that one I had to sign something real quick. They were like this, and I just, the other government rule is your will, last will and testament. You have the authority to sign a document that says where your stuff goes when you pass away, who's going to be in charge of it, who's going to handle it, where is this going to go, where isn't it going to go? You can create trusts. Trusts are separate legal entities that can own, hold, and control property. I use the example, it's like a box, and you take things and you put it into this box, and then you close the lid on the box and you write rules about when it can be used, and more importantly, when it can't be used. So you could do that during lifetime and put things in there and say it could be used for this purpose or that purpose. It can be used for paying for college education, paying for emergencies, could be used for special needs planning if you have a special needs child. All of these things, whatever purpose you feel is important, you can have that trust. You can just create a trust to do that. You could create trust during lifetime, or you can create trusts upon your death. So depending on what you want to accomplish, you can avail yourself of that government tool to do that. And then of course there's the probate and estate administration process. You know, that's the system. That's the rules that are out there. That's how things work. The next thing we're going to talk about are the predators you need to know about. And when I'm doing this talk, and there's people in the room, I go, you know, what is the biggest predator? What's the biggest risk? The biggest thing out there that's going to cause you to potentially lose your stuff? You know, and people go, oh, taxes. People go, oh, the government. People go, oh, long-term care costs. I go, or lawsuits. I thought with lawsuits, you're going to lose everything in a lawsuit. Who knows someone who lost everything in a lawsuit? You know, generally speaking, people don't, you lose everything. And that's why you have insurance. People generally don't even end up paying in lawsuits. You know, we use the old joke, you crash your car into a busload of lawyers and you're going to end up losing everything. Realistically, it doesn't happen. You know who causes families to lose their money? Family, loved ones. You know, the daughter that's not doing well and you're giving her some money every year. The son who you help in business and then the business fails. You know, the loving child who says, Mom, put the house in my name and you could live with us forever. And then 2 years later, the house gets foreclosed on because they mortgaged it to hilt. You know, those are the problems. Those are the predators. But you need to know the predators. Again, we talked about the government predators, guardianships, probate, all of those things, failing to plan, failing to do those things. You know, taxes, you know, federal taxes, death taxes, all of that. They take a piece, you know, but they're not going to take everything. It's a predator. It's something you need to be aware of. It's something you need to pray for. You need to plan for, and also pray for when it comes to taxes, but be that as it may. And by doing planning, you could minimize that. You can be ready for it. And it's just part of the system. It's, you know, I use the phrase, it's cost of doing business. And my favorite is talking about Pennsylvania inheritance tax. Pennsylvania has a tax on property going to spouses, it's 0. On property going to children, it's 4.5%. On property going to siblings, it's 12%. And on property going to anyone else, it's 15%. I've been in practice for, 37 years. I've done a lot of tax returns. I've never had one beneficiary complain about paying inheritance tax. Because when you give a check to here you inherited 100, but you're only getting a check for 95.5 because you had to pay 4.5 of inheritance tax. No one goes 4.5%. They go 95.5. I got, you know, they're excited about getting the inheritance, paying a little bit of money. A niece, could you imagine a niece going, I shouldn't say, a niece or nephew going, well, I'm a guest, I'm not going to take it. I'm only getting 85 because I had to pay 15 in taxes. That's a travesty. No, they're going, I don't even remember Aunt so-and-so. I'm getting 85 from her. This is great. Again, taxes are something you need to plan for, but they're not going to be the problem.
I have a quick question about the taxes that you put down, because I know you're also licensed in New Jersey. I actually sent you a question earlier today because I'm working with a trust to sell mom's house. So, but even if you don't have to pay any inheritance taxes when it's a spouse involved in the charity, do you still have to file the return?
It depends. And I know, since you mentioned New Jersey, I'll comment on New Jersey and then on Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
In New Jersey, for certain types of assets, for property going to a spouse or children or parents or grandchildren, up and down the family tree,
Mm-hmm.
there are forms called self-executing waivers. It's a form, like if there's a bank account, you can go and just file it and say, we don't have to pay taxes, so you get it. There's another form for real estate. It gets a little bit murky when property's owned by a trust versus an individual because it depends on exactly the terms of the trust. So New Jersey's pretty easy as long as you're in the family. Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania. Nothing's easy in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, if you property's going to a child, a sibling, a charity, to anyone else, you have to file an inheritance tax return and pay the tax, or they'll come after you. In Pennsylvania, they don't freeze the accounts. You can go and get the monies, but you can only put them into an estate account. So if Tom passes away and Tom has an account at XYZ Bank with $100,000 in it, the executor, after the will's probated, could take the paperwork and go, okay, bank, give me that $100,000, put it into an estate checking account. And then from the estate checking account, they can pay bills and do things like that. So New Jersey kind of freezes the assets, but then it's easy to unfreeze them. Pennsylvania doesn't freeze them, but you have to file the taxes and pay the tax because it's called an inchoate lien. It's just a lien at law on the property. More than you need to know. You could forget all of what I just said, just that it's not really that hard. And just call us and we'll handle it all for you. So it's no big deal in either state. Pennsylvania is very interesting though. And this is a trap, and I'll say it and I mean it. It's a trap for a husband and wife situation. Now, you'll see on this little chart here, it says on the bottom that the tax, Pennsylvania inheritance tax on spouses is 0%, right? Pennsylvania maintains that just because it says 0 doesn't mean there's no tax. They say there is a tax due. It just happens to be calculated at 0%. Because way back when in the 80s, there was a 1% tax on certain properties. They got rid of it, but they kept it in place. Why is that a trap? Well, on property, suppose husband has an IRA with $100,000 in it, and husband has a annuity with $100,000 in it. Okay, they're both in his name. Husband dies, that 200, and wife is named as beneficiary on both. Husband dies, that 200,000 goes to wife. So wife thinks she's done. 8 months later, wife gets an incredibly intimidating looking letter from the Pennsylvania Inheritance Tax Division. It's this long, it's printed microscopically, so she can't even read it. And they send her 3 copies. And the only thing on it that she can read, because they do it nice and big, is your husband passed away. You're the beneficiary of accounts at this bank with the amount of, or an IRA from this company and annuity from this company of $200,000. You owe a tax. And because they're nice, they calculate that tax at 15%, the highest possible bracket. That tax isn't due. If you take the time to read it, there's a section that says, if you're a spouse, check here because the tax is 0 and no tax is due. But I have clients come in all the time saying, I got this real scary letter from the tax people and I just sent them a check. It's a trap. They do it all the time. So whenever I always mention to people, if you're, God forbid, if your spouse passes and you get a letter from the state saying you owe a tax, you don't. Give us a call. We'll explain why. So New Jersey's better and worse. Pennsylvania's better and worse. It just depends on what you're looking at. Kind of got a feel there. I apologize, but taxes sometimes get me angry. So one governed the predator. Long-term care costs, major predator. Obviously, you live around here, nursing homes fit $12,000, $15,000 a month. We had a call from a gentleman yesterday. He has his wife in a facility. Strike that. He's keeping his wife home because he promised her he would never put her in a facility. He's paying a home care service $15,000 a month. And on top of that, he's paying $4,000 a month for additional care. He's paying $19,000 a month to keep his wife home. And surprisingly, he said he can't do that forever. Who could? Um, the nursing home costs 15,000 are common, 12,000 is average. Long-term care cost, major predator. But again, the unanticipated and unintentional predators, your family, blended families, younger spouses, one passes away, the other one gets remarried, long time passes, second marriages, how do you treat the other children, that sort of thing. Your beneficiaries, the spendthrift child, the child who you give her $1, she spends $2. Maybe a child's in bankruptcy. Maybe a child, God forbid, has a drug addiction or something. Disabilities, divorces. I could tell you horror stories about parents that helped out their child in a marriage situation. Bought them a house or gave them a big down payment on a house or gave them a house, moved out of their house and gave it to their daughter, gave it to their son, and then all of a sudden the divorce comes and the son-in-law that they never really liked anyway now owns half of their house. Again, lawsuits, we talked about that. Those are all predators out there. They're all things you need to plan for to protect yourself and protect your family. And there's ways to do it. And it's across generations. Younger people have just the same, they have different slices of the same problems than seniors do. And it's a matter of just keeping on top of it. The third thing is in our list of things you need to know your options. You need to know that you can do estate planning. Estate planning is an all-encompassing word that includes, those documents we talked about, that includes planning, that includes protections, so that you can set up who's in control. You can decide who's going to run things. You can decide who's going to take care of things. You can decide who's going to be the boss. Estate planning allows you also, and more importantly, to decide who's going to get the benefit. Who's going to be the beneficiary? Is it all your children equally? Well, what if 2 of your kids are doing fantastically and one of them struggling? Do you take care of that one? Do you not take care of anyone and give them to the grandkids or give them to charity or whatever? I've had clients that have totally disinherited their children. They love their kids and everything else, but they say, yeah, you know what, they're doing fine. I want to give this to charity and whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, you want to do. And you can do it. But the real thing about estate planning is you decide when. So for younger people, I say, okay, you have your stuff. If God forbid if husband and wife, you have your stuff, God forbid you passed away yesterday. Would you want your 7-year-old, 12-year-old, 19-year-old, 22-year-old child to have everything that you have in their pocket right now? A 8-year-old, they're going to have the best collection of Barbies on the East Coast. 16, they're going to have the best, video game surround sound setup in the world. A 23-year-old's going to buy the fastest car and wrap it around the tree. And the best thing that could happen is they just lose the car. Drug issues, capacity issues, spousal issues, remarriage issues, all of those things. When you're doing planning, when you're looking at your stuff, you can figure those things out. Your home, if something happens to you, do you want to keep your home and have your children stay there? Do you want to sell the house? Do you want to sell the house and buy a new house? Do you want to, set up a trust to hold the house? All these different things. There's no right or there's wrong. It's just what you want and what you deem is appropriate. And it's your job to analyze your situation and figure that out. The goals of every plan that we've done for anyone, anywhere, and they fall into very simple things. People want to stay in control. People don't want to be a burden. And then the last one is people want to keep it simple. I love the discussion that goes, I want, put limitations on what my kids can do. I want to be able to pick pick the college that they go to. I want to make sure my one son can't do this. I want to make sure my wife can do that. I want to make sure this, I want to make sure that, but keep it simple. Excuse me, that ship has sailed with all of that stuff. And this is an important one, and it merits a check mark. That's how important it is. You need to know the difference between documents and planning. And this is something that's true across the board in everything. Documents are, oh, you want to do a will, you want to do a power of attorney, you want to do a living will, fine. Here's my form, sign them. Documents are, you go to, you go to see Olga, you go to see a real estate person. They go, oh, you want to sell your house? Yeah, here, sign this form. Houses in your area, go for this. I'll list it. Thanks a lot. Anyone can do that. That's dime a dozen. Planning is where you say, okay, that's what you think you want. That's what you think you need to do. But let's take a step back and let's talk about what your goals are, what you want. Let's talk about how we can take these standard pieces of paper and make them dance to do what you want. Let's look at your house. Yeah, sure, we could list it, but no, let's maybe do this and that and the other thing. Let's massage it a little bit. And all of a sudden now it's a better thing, and Olga makes it better and easier to sell and everything else. That's planning, that's working, and that's special. That's what you need. That's understanding all the costs and understanding how to minimize them. So I'll make it a point. You're selling your house. Olga says, you know what? We need to rip out this carpet and refinish the floor. Wait a minute, that's going to cost me $5,000. Yeah, but it's going to get you 10. That's what knowledge, that's planning. Or just the opposite. A lot of times I know when we're selling, so seniors are selling homes, they go, we're going to gut the place and repaint it and everything else. And we say, no, don't do that, because the person's going to move in and do it all anyway. You're not helping yourself. The important thing is to know your options and to choose what's right for you. Not what's standard, not what everyone else does, but what is the important choices, the important decisions, the important practice for you. And that's what planning is. That's across anything. I'm running a little bit long here. You need to, when you do planning, you need to create your own rule book. You need to create your own rules saying what you want. For us, it's in wills and trusts. For, every industry has their own. Olga's, she'll tell you need to decide what you need along these different things. You need to then take those rules and see how they work with your life and with your stuff. Someone comes into me and they say, Henry, I want to do a trust that's going to pay for my kids, for their college education, to do this, to do that, to do the other, and I've got $175 in the bank. Well, that's not going to work. We need to come up with another thing. But then you need to maintain and update and address and modify and keep current your rules to stay with life as they change. Without all three of those goals, things don't work. Again, good marketing versus good lawyering, or good marketing versus good real estate sales. Anyone can say they do it, and anyone can throw the documents at you. The people that do it right are the ones that can get you the results that you need. And then last but not least, for putting up with me for 45 minutes, we offer a free initial consultation. Feel free to give a call. We're doing all Zoom meetings now, so it's very easy to do. You don't have to get in your car, and we'll be happy to chat with you about, your particular goals, your particular needs, your particular thoughts. All right. So now, with a bit of luck, I'll get us all back together. Here we go. Any questions with all of that?
So I'm glad you brought all those up. And one thing I forgot, I have a daughter who's unmarried with a son. And it never dawned to me that she should have a will and because when my son passed away, I had to deal with that because there was nothing in there. So I had to hire a lawyer and everything. So this advice alone is worth its weight. So the second question is, are you only available in Pennsylvania or can you handle New Jersey?
I'm licensed in both states. Our office practice actively in both states.
Okay, good. Because I've been attending a few of the seminars. The big issue is where do I find a good lawyer? And of course, you give me a lot
have an
of
idea.
information. So how do I contact you?
All right. Let me give you our phone number. Our office phone number is 215-493.
Can you put in the wait.
Is there a chat thing I could put it in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kevin, we will forward you the information and a business card for Henry's office, so you will have everything as well. Don't worry.
Absolutely, because the advice alone, because one of the things I'm afraid of, if something happened to her, my grandson's father is going to come after. And how do I protect that? And I never thought of it. So this alone was time I spent with you. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And again, because of pandemic, unfortunately enough that I'm retired, but my biggest worry is long-term care and what happened to my money. Once I leave, I want to make sure that's protected. And as you mentioned, it's the unknown that I have to deal with. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, thank you. One of my missions, I guess would be the way to say it, is to educate people. It's why I do these seminars. And I jokingly say, if 3 people come together and want me to talk, I'll stand around and chat with them. I also do a radio show every week on WBCB, the local AM radio station. I always say Miro Research Station, everyone knows that. It's done just that. It's done to get information out because, your reaction is so common. Every time I give a talk, I shouldn't say every time, but most times when I give a talk, someone will call and say, you know what, that never occurred to me, but wow, that's something we need to do. So I appreciate it.
You mentioned protecting your assets from Medicaid. Isn't there a 5-year look back on that?
Yes, there is. There is, but there are techniques that we have that can avoid that. But what I would say to you is, yes, because of that 5-year look back, you need to call us sooner because the clock is running. And if you wait 3 years and do something, you have to wait 5 years. If you do it now and in 3 years from now, you only have 2 years left to wait. But
Gotcha.
People tend to be invincible. So they always wait until it's too late.
And you mentioned you're on the radio. When is that?
Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock on WBCB. That's 1490 AM. The show's called Senior Legal Strategies.
What I will do under our recording for this workshop, I will put a link to the radio station so that way you can just click on it and go to listen to it. I know there's previous recordings as well that are posted there.
Good, thank you.
One of the things, Henry, that I wanted to mention to you when you were talking about the enemies, so to speak, I think the biggest enemy that I see when I'm dealing with clients is unpreparedness and lack of planning. And I can't tell you how many times I stress to people, and doing these workshops is part of that, is educating the community and our clients, is to helping them understand. And we talk to them about having a binder that they put together of their wishes and the list of things and where to find information and where everything is. And most people just don't want to bother. And that's, I think, is the scariest, because then, you know, professionals like you and I have to help the families to go through this. And it's a lot more stressful and chaotic. And sometimes it's too late to make the decisions they're trying to make at that time.
Absolutely. A bit of advice on that, and then a funny story. The bit of advice is it's great to write down like all of your bank accounts and all of your investment accounts and things like that, but do not put down the full account number. Put down star and the last 2 or 3 numbers. That's all you need, because if a family member that is authorized and should be doing it goes to XYZ bank and says, you know, I need Henry Carpenter's accounts. I know he has a checking account that ends in 51 and this, it ends in this, you know, the bank's going to work with them. Where if a crook shows up and says, I want all of Henry's money, it's in an account that ends in, you know, 41, they're going to say, why do you have authority to do this? Again, you'd be amazed how many people come in and will go, oh, Henry, you wanted a list of my assets. Here's this, and it has all. I'm like, no, I don't even want to look at it. Give it to me later. I just want the last couple of numbers. And
Interesting.
then sort of a funny story is, well, funny story in the world I live in. A woman came into our office. She had 2 daughters, and she came in and she was in hysterics. She was beside herself. And she came in and said, you know, my husband just had a stroke. He's in a facility. He's out of it. He can't communicate. You know, they're thinking he's not going to make it. But even worse, they think he's going to be in a nursing home for a while in a very debilitated state. Turned out he got better and came home. So it had a happy ending. And she goes, and I'm okay, that's fine. She goes, the daughter's going, but Mom, tell him you're concerned. And she goes, I don't know if I'm going to live. I don't know how I'm going to live. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, our whole married life, I never did anything with our finances. I don't even know where our bank accounts are. All I know is that I have a checking account that he always kept $1,000 in. And I use that for the groceries and I use that for everything else. And I don't know. I don't know what to do. I said, don't worry. We see this all the time. A lot of times in the States when people pass, we have a system. What we'll do is we'll track down, find out all the information. Why don't you come back in next week? And she comes back in the next week and she sits down and she's just fretting. I go, first off, you don't need to worry. And she goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, we've gotten back about half of what we sent out. And we estimate your joint net worth to be north of $3 million. And she looks up and the funniest thing came out of her mouth. She went, that dirty SOB, all he gave me was $1,000. And then both of her daughters at the exact same time went, Mom, him giving you $1,000 is why you have the $3 million. And they all started to laugh and it ended up happy. But I've never seen such a mood swing. From so upset to that dirty S, and she didn't use the letters. But the point of the story is you need to know what you have. You need to make it simple so that if, God forbid, something happens, your loved ones can figure out what you have so that life can go on.
I had a similar tale. My husband was a Philadelphia school teacher, and when he retired, we checked the box that I would keep getting his pension after he died. And I ran into somebody whose husband was in the same category, and she said, I don't know what I'm going to do when he dies and I lose that pension. And I said, well, why did you check that box off that you didn't want it? And she said, what do you mean? I said, you had a choice. He gets all of it, you get nothing. You get 75% or you get 50% when he dies. And she said the same thing, that dirty, rotten SOB. And I'm glad I wasn't there when she went home.
Yeah.
He forged her signature.
It happens.
Yeah.
What I like to say is, well, maybe she just doesn't remember and they had a nice discussion and they jointly decided. Probably not, but we got to
Right.
at least give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt. All righty.
All right, anybody else has any other questions? Anything else that you can think of? I also have Henry's guide, a free guide that he publishes that I can also send out. I always use that as a resource. I found it myself very helpful in working with my own parents. So we can get that out to everyone who is on this workshop as well.
Thank you.
That'll
Very
be
much.
super.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Henry. I so much appreciate you spending an hour with us this afternoon.
Yeah.
Hopefully
My
we'll get
pleasure.
to see you again. And
Thank
we will get the copy of this recording to everyone. And thank you again for tuning in. We'll hope to see you at our next workshop. Have a good day after everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be safe.